Wheat flour is an important and most basic ingredient in everyday foods. According to the Korean Flour Mills Industrial Association, the total consumption of processed flour in Korea has increased steadily since 1965, exceeding 2 million tons in 2019. Wheat flour is loved by many people because of its unique texture. When you add water to flour and knead it, it becomes chewy and elastic because of the gluten component contained in the flour. Gluten is an insoluble protein naturally found in cereal grains and is made up of two major protein components, glutenin and gliadin. The glutenin contributes to the strength and elasticity of your dough, and the gliadin contributes to the extensibility and viscosity. When you knead your flour by mixing with water, glutenin and gliadin combine to form gluten. And as the dough is kneaded, the gluten chains stretch and develop further, creating a chewy texture. But unfortunately, this gluten component can also cause gas, bloating, and indigestion accompanied by abdominal pain, diarrhea, and acid reflux. It's because our body has little or no digestive enzymes that can break down the gluten in wheat flour. Continued consumption of wheat flour has been associated with headaches, allergies, obesity, autoimmune diseases, weakened immunity, and even ADHD, a psychiatric disorder. Gluten intolerance is a typical side effect of gluten that occurs when our body has difficulty breaking down, absorbing, and digesting the gluten in wheat. It is accompanied by gas and bloating, as well as stomach pain, diarrhea, and acid reflux. In some cases, gluten allergy may appear as a side effect, where the intestinal immune system recognizes gluten as a foreign substance and overreacts. This can lead to atopic dermatitis, urticaria, rash, edema, cough, asthma, allergic rhinitis, and can even trigger anaphylaxis, a hypotensive shock in which the blood pressure drops suddenly. Gluten-sensitive bowel disease is an autoimmune disease in which the immune system overreacts to the gluten in the small intestines, and the villi of the intestinal mucosa are atrophied, or the tight junctions are loosened or damaged, thereby inhibiting the proper absorption of nutrients. Currently, avoiding gluten-containing foods is the only way, but it's never easy. Moreover, opioid peptides, called exorphins, are formed during the digestion of the gluten protein, and these peptides stimulate opioid receptors in the central nervous system to keep you craving flour food. Craving and excessive consumption of wheat flour products can ultimately lead to blood acidification, obesity, diabetes, arteriosclerosis, and fatty liver. Gluten that has not been broken down, absorbed, and digested through the digestive system produces harmful gases in the intestine, which can cause inflammation in the intestinal epithelial cells and increase harmful bacteria. This can cause dysbiosis, where normal intestinal microflora balance of 85-15 is disrupted and various intestinal diseases occur. In addition, the gliadin contained in gluten promotes the secretion of zonulin to dismantle or damage the villi of the small intestine, increasing the risk of leaky gut syndrome, which allows bacteria, viruses, fungi, heavy metals, and waste products to enter the bloodstream. And blood contamination causes inflammation and various diseases. In order to improve and prevent these serious side effects of gluten, research on gluten-free foods, from which gluten has been removed, is being actively conducted in the United States and Europe. Alternative foods using rice flour, buckwheat, and sorghum are already on the market. Statistics show that the United States and Europe with wheat-based diets are seeing a surge in demand for gluten-free products, especially breads and sweets, dairy products, and ice cream. The problem is that gluten-free foods are often marketed as healthy foods. Wheat flour is largely composed of 70 to 75% carbohydrates and 10 to 15% gluten proteins. But most gluten-free foods replace gluten with other grain starches, which makes them high carbohydrate foods. Therefore, in reality, they may cause a high risk of developing diseases such as fatty liver, obesity, high blood pressure, and diabetes. The solution to eating wheat flour without worrying about gluten is microbiome's gluten-degrading probiotics. Gluten-degrading probiotics breaks down the gluten in flour, so it can prevent the side effects of gluten, including digestive disorders, while maintaining the chewy texture of flour. Our product contains 4 different beneficial bacteria and 7 types of postbiotic ingredients, which are heat-treated lactic acid bacteria cultures. We have discovered lactic acid bacteria strains from fermented foods that can break down gluten and have paved the way to eat wheat flour foods without worrying about gluten. De-glu MB0601 has been patented as lactic acid bacteria that breaks down gluten. It was confirmed that an average of 70 to 90% of gluten was degraded when the De-glu MB0601 strain was added to the dough and aged. In animal model experiments, the gastrin hormone in the blood, which helps promote gastric juice secretion and gastrointestinal movement, increased by up to 60%, and the secretion of pancreatic amylase, an enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates in wheat, increased by 40 to 80%, greatly improving digestion. The De-glu GLU70 strain was patented for its effectiveness in preventing side effects of gluten as well as improving inflammatory bowel disease caused by gliadin and gluten. 5-strain probiotic complex, which contains 5 strains of lactic acid bacteria isolated from fermented foods, received a test report as having antibacterial and antiviral effects from a nationally approved test analysis. It helps to balance intestinal microflora, regulate intestinal pH, and inhibit the growth and activity of harmful bacteria and viruses. The digestive enzyme-producing strain, which produces various enzymes that break down carbohydrates, including starch, as well as proteins, to promote the secretion of amylase to facilitate the breakdown, absorption, and digestion of flour. Therefore, it also helps to improve digestion problems caused by bloating or gas after eating flour foods. The reason we take gluten-degrading probiotic is not just for the beneficial effects of lactic acid bacteria, but also for the postbiotics, which are heat-treated cultures of the lactic acid bacteria. These dry cultures also provide beneficial effects by contributing to nutrient movement, immunity maintenance, blood clot prevention, blood pressure maintenance, insulin secretion promotion, and blood sugar reduction. De-glu MB1 is the heat-treated culture of the patented strain De-glu MB0601, and it contains beneficial metabolites such as organic acids and short-chain fatty acids, as well as the inherent gluten-degrading ability of the De-glu MB0601 strain. De-glu MB2, the heat-treated culture of the patented strain De-glu GLU70, has been patented for its effectiveness in improving inflammatory bowel disease caused by gliadin. Gluten-degrading probiotic also contains heat-treated cultures of the patented Diproromnosis strain, which was recognized for its effectiveness in prevention and treatment of obesity. Gluten-degrading probiotics also contains MB201, MB202, MB203, MB204, which are heat-treated lactic acid bacteria cultures derived from 4 strains of lactic acid bacteria isolated from fermented foods. According to the test report from a nationally recognized test analysis, this postbiotic complex contains 17 kinds of amino acids, various organic acids, as well as short-chain fatty acids. If you can't quit wheat and completely eliminate gluten, you have to choose a healthy way to eat them. Try gluten-degrading probiotic that effectively breaks down gluten so that you can eat wheat flour without having to worry about gluten again.